everybody, it's Em. Today I was going to do a quick video about some of my favorite book series. These are not new series. I have yet to get into anything fairly recent. So these are somewhat older, maybe new to you. And this does not include manga. I have a whole video about all the manga I read and love. And I will link that up here, whichever side they pop up on. And you can watch that separately if you're interested in manga. So I'm going to start with, there's a lot of different genres because I read a lot of different stuff. So I'm going to start with stuff that I read when I was younger and really enjoyed. First off, the Hercule Poirot series by Agatha Christie. I love mysteries. I do really love Sherlock Holmes, but I wouldn't actually count the original Doyle stories as one of my favorite series, strangely enough, but I would count the Hercule Poirot books as one of my favorite series. In my middle school and teen years, I really got into them and I just devoured them. And recently, a few years ago, I started sharing those books with my oldest son, and he's really enjoyed them. And I've enjoyed rereading them. And anyway, yes, I have never read any Miss Marple. I feel like I probably should. I feel like I vaguely remember picking one up when I was younger and not being as enamored of it, but I might feel differently now. So Miss Marple is on my list to read in the future. Another series that I read probably when I was too young to be reading it was Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles. I loved Interview with the Vampire, and I read that series went on for a long time. I read all the way through, is the last one Blackwood Farm, I think? But anyway, it's a pretty long series, and then there are a lot of ancillary books like Pandora and Vittorio and all those. And I devoured those, loved those books for a long, long time. I will say that I tried to read the more recent Prince Lestat and could not get into it. It just didn't hold the charm for me. And I do reread Interview every few years, and the last time I read it, I felt like maybe I had outgrown it a little bit. Another one that I reread is Merrick, which I might try to reread and see if I feel any differently. But it does hold, as a series, a really special place in my heart. It was a touchstone for me in my high school and undergrad years, and I very much still love the Vampire Chronicles, even if on rereads they don't have the impact they did then. Another series that I read when I was an undergrad is Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, which is comic books gathered into several volumes of sort of graphic novels, starting with, I don't remember. Anyway, a friend of mine loaned these to me when I was in college, and I went through them very rapidly and immediately fell in love with the mythology built around Morpheus, King of Dreams, and his family known as the Endless. They're very graphic, so not kid-friendly comics, I would say, but that is like a really well-woven myth world building kind of thing going on there. Obviously, because there are a lot of different artists for various of the comics, you get a wide range of art depending on your preferences. Some you're gonna like more than others, but the story hangs together incredibly well and is very, I don't know, for me it was very engrossing, and I do love that series. I have not reread it recently. I'm kind of scared to, and I know the Netflix series is coming, and I'm a little nervous about that as well, although I was nervous about Good Omens, and it was brilliant, so hopefully the Sandman series is just as good. Moving on to things I read. Well, one other thing that I read when I was younger-ish, the Six Sisters series by Marion Chesney. Now that is a Regency romance series in which there are six sisters, and each of them have names that start with the letter of the alphabet. I think the first one's Annabelle. And anyway, it's each of them dealing with their individual romance. I think if you like Bridgerton, well, probably not, because these are traditional Regency romances where there's no graphic sex or anything like that. But Mary Chesney did it first with the ABC thing, I guess. I'm sure a lot of people have done it. I'm not, no shade, I promise. I'm not interested in Bridgerton. I tried to watch the series, and I had heard about the book and had not realized that the Bridgerton series was from that book. And then when I realized what was about to happen, I ceased watching. It isn't my cup of tea. But the Six Sisters series by Marion Chesney is another series that when people ask me what's a good Regency romance series or clean romance series, I tend to point to that because that's one that I read and enjoyed when I was younger. And actually I reread it, well, it was probably longer ago now than I realized, but I reread it not so long ago and still really enjoyed it. It holds up quite well. Okay, so somewhat more recently, when I was in grad school, that movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley, came out, and I really enjoyed it, and therefore I went through all of the Ripley books by Patricia Highsmith. These follow Tom Ripley, who is a con man / murderer, as he, perpetuates various of his crimes and the ways he gets in and out of trouble. I really, really enjoyed that series, and I'm looking forward to the television series that's now being made, starring Andrew Scott as Ripley. So that's something to look forward to. So if you haven't read those books, that's something to consider if you like that kind of thing. There's a lot of homoeroticism involved in those books. Not as many, by the way. You almost never see her. Hang on, I gotta let her out. Sorry. Let the cat out. Took off my hoodie because it's actually kind of warm in here today. We're having spring weather in winter. It does not bode well for us here in California that we're not getting the rain we would normally get this time of year. But anyway, as I was saying, if you're familiar with Patricia Highsmith's work, you're probably not surprised to find that there is a certain amount of homoeroticism in the Ripley series. So, take that as a warning or a lure, depending on your preferences. Another series that I've really enjoyed is the Dublin Murder Squad by Tana French. I've mentioned this before in previous videos. The first book, In the Woods, was sent to me years and years and years ago when I was a reviewer for Blog Critics, and I loved it. And it's still, I think, the best of the series, but it took me a long time to read the second book, The Likeness, because I was so mad that the main character from In the Woods was not the main character in The Likeness. Tana French does this thing where a secondary character from the previous book becomes the main character in the next book, and so I held a grudge for a hot minute because I really liked Rob in the Woods, but after I got over it and read The Likeness and subsequent books, I have really enjoyed that series. Another, you see, I lean towards mystery. I lean towards mystery. And another one that I really enjoy is the Peter Grant series, also known as the Rivers of London series by Ben Aaronovitch. I always say Aaronovitch, but I don't know if he emphasizes the O or not. Aaronovitch. I don't know. Anyway, starting with the book Rivers of London, or known, I think, in the States as Midnight Riot. This follows PC Peter Grant, a constable in the London Metropolitan Police, as he discovers that magic is real, and there's actually a whole police division devoted to magical crimes and criminals, and he begins to learn how to use magic from a higher up named Nightingale. He gets to go live in this place called The Folly, which is a safe place for him to practice and learn. There's this cool fae matron of the house, I guess, named Molly, and it's very interesting. It's got quite a cast of characters. I will say this series started out really strong for me. In the last few books I have not been as engaged by. I haven't even read False Value yet. It's on my Kindle, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I don't feel as driven to keep reading it as I did at the beginning. But I honestly think if I restarted from the beginning and made my way through it, I'd probably, the momentum would be there. I just feel like it's been big gaps between me reading the various volumes, and I need to get back on that horse, as it were. Anyway, when I explained this series to my oldest son, he was like, oh, it's like adult Harry Potter. And to an extent, yes, but obviously, it's pretty different. There are different kinds of magical creatures all through London, and then there's a through thread as Peter tries to track down a specific criminal through all these books. And then, anyway, it's a fun series, and I do recommend it. And that's my list. I'm looking at my list over here on the side, sorry. But I'm just one other one that I enjoy, and I know people either really love this series or really don't enjoy it, is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Sorry if you can hear my cat trying to get in again. I really, really enjoyed The Raven Cycle. In fact, I read it inside of a month, and then picked it up and immediately reread it again, and loved it just as much the second time. I did try to then read Call Down the Hawk, which is the first in the Dreamer trilogy that's supposedly Ronan and maybe Adam, and I could not get into that, so maybe that moment has passed, but at the time I really, really did love that series. And even though I think it started more strongly than it ended, I think there's a lot to love, especially for me, the characters. I'm a character person, so if I can fall in love with a character, or in this case more than one character, then you've probably hooked me, regardless of the other circumstances. So I feel similarly about the Simon Snow series, where I love the characters, and that first book was amazing, and then for me they got not as good and then terrible. You can go watch my review of Anyway the Wind Blows if you want, but I really did not care for it. The more I think about it, the less I like it. So, let's just pretend like there was just the one book, maybe. For me, I know, again, a lot of people love it. And if any of you have been reading my Simon Snow fic on AO3, I will get back to it. I have been crazy busy. I haven't had the time to devote to my fanfic because I need to do the other writing jobs and editing jobs that I am, obligated to do. But I'm hoping to get back to it. If you haven't read it, it's called The King's Consort. It's not finished. It's been kind of lingering on AO3 for a long time, but I do hope to get back to it it takes place after the second book, because I started writing it before the third book came out, so it doesn't really like reflect anything from the third book. But there's my plug for my fanfic. Go check it out, I guess, if you like that kind of thing. So that's it. Those are the series. I'm sure there are other series I love and didn't think to mention. I never finished Dune, so I can't say that that's one of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, obviously I didn't talk about manga, which is a different animal entirely for me. But that's it. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you love any of these, if you hate any of these, if there are other series you recommend. Should I try Miss Marple? Leave me a comment, like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time.